I hope we're going to have fun today. This is going to be a little different from the usual kind of presentation that we have here for a reason, because we're going to be talking about worship and liturgy in this particular context, and that always has an emotional and even sensuous component to it. You'll notice on the tables you have breakfast if you are hungry, a little wine, Manischewitz, a little matzah, whole wheat, on bamboo plates and biodegradable cups. When we break into our group work, we'll have a chance. One of the optional things that you can do around your tables is to talk about the larger community that helps make things like wine and bread or matzah possible, because these are part of our table liturgies. My 2-year sojourn in the advertising world in the mid-1970s convinced me that that probably was not where I wanted to spend the rest of my life. However, I have recognized that that 2 years has informed just about everything I've done from there on, especially in ministry, because that world is much better than our world at communicating certain things at particular levels. One disclaimer, in our communities we are theology-based, and there probably is a spectrum of theologies in this room. So nothing that I'm saying today relates specifically to a theological perspective, although I have one and it's pretty liberal, and maybe yours is too. But I think what we're going to be talking about today relates to faith communities and faith practices and worship practices wherever we are pretty much on the theological spectrum. And also feel free to kind of jump in and ask questions or make comments. And Nina, I'm going to be relying on you at some point when you start talking about Jewish liturgy. If I get it all wrong, just say, okay. So why a session on worship and liturgy at a series that is organized around food and faith in this place? I mean, it just kind of sounds like we're covering the whole waterfront here. Well, most of us here are leaders in some way in a faith community, right? You're either clergy or you are lay leaders of some sort, and we are engaged in worship and practice. And therefore, most of us have some influence within our communities, and most of us sense that change is needed, behavioral change, in order to create a sustainable future. That's why you're here, right? Yeah. We know that the way we eat has to do with the health of the land and the health of the world's people, and we are frustrated that we get it and nobody else does. And so here we are, and we're trying to find those places where we can actually make an impact in people's thinking, and then hopefully change behavior. Because it's not good enough for a group of elite people to know what needs to be done if we can't influence the communities of which we're part to change behavior. So eating is about as basic a thing as we can consider when we're talking about creating a sustainable future. You can ask the question, why are we created as creatures who must eat. You know, maybe we could have just been created as vaporous entities that could love God and somehow merge, you know, with each other in this great cloud of unknowing or something like that. But every creature on this planet needs to eat. And if you think about it, that is the one thing that connects us. It connects us people to people. It connects us creature to creature. Every time we eat something, it is proof that we are not autonomous gods, but that we need each other in order to survive. So eating is pretty basic. There's a wonderful quote I love. To eat is to be implicated in a vast, complex, interweaving set of life and death dramas, in which we are only one character among many. No matter how solitary our eating experience may be, every sniff, chomp, and swallow connects us to vast global trade networks, and thus to biophysical and social worlds far beyond ourselves. The moment we chew on anything, we participate in regional geographic histories and in biochemical processes that, for all their diversity and complexity, defy our wildest imaginations and most thorough attempts at comprehension. The minute we contemplate or talk about eating, we show ourselves to be involved in culinary traditions and cultural taboos, as well as moral quandaries and spiritual quests. To amend an ecologist maxim, we can never only bite into one thing. And Wendell Berry, who many of you know, wrote, "To live, we must daily break the body and shed the blood of creation. When we do this knowingly, lovingly, skillfully, reverently, it is a sacrament. When we do it ignorantly, greedily, clumsily, destructively, it is a desecration. In such desecration, we condemn ourselves to spiritual and moral loneliness and others to want." So we're going to make a few basic assumptions here. Let's see if I can make this work. No, apparently not. One assumption of this morning is that behavioral change is one of the goals of our traditions, and it's one of our environmental concerns. It's why we came here, again, to think of ways that we can influence behavior to ensure a sustainable future. Another assumption that we just talked about is that we are relational creatures. We are embodied creatures. We are not just minds, and we are not just spirits floating around. So our faith commitments get lived out in large measure by what we do and don't do with our bodies. And that includes eating. And we are relational. At the heart of all of our traditions here is that great commandment that what we are called to do is to love God and love neighbor as self. So it all comes together. If you read the advanced readings for today, and I'll go over them briefly in a second, you know that another assumption today is that we are driven more by what we desire than what we think or believe. We're going to get back to that in a few minutes. But oftentimes in our religious community, we tend to focus on what we believe and what other people believe, and that's all fine, except that if it's all about belief, that's not a real compelling reason to talk about lifestyle change. This is where media and advertising come in. We are surrounded by alternative messages, and their goal is to shape our desires and thereby influence our behaviors. And I'm going to make the assumption that our worship liturgies are more influential than we thought they were. It's the one time when we gather the people together and sing and pray and sometimes eat and do pass the peace and hug and do all these wonderful things. And that's one of the places where we are shaped in terms of our faith practices. This is my least favorite commercial from the past holiday season. We're going to watch it and then talk a little bit about what's going on. Let's see if...
To those who received both the full-size fruit and 36 mile per gallon highway of food across with the assist, enjoy. To those who sacrificed one for the other, there's still time. During the Buick holiday event, sign and drive this 2012 Buick LaCrosse for $331 per month with nothing due at signing. It's our best offer of the year.
Well, who can pass that up? So what's going on there? Who is this appealing to, and what's the message?
You know, I've seen that.
Yeah, we've all seen it, hopefully.
He completely denies people making choices based on their convictions and moves them to make the choices based on compulsion and impulse. This dismisses, the little car, safe gas, does much more. It's kind of choice. One, no matter if you can get a Bentley sitting out there. And so that I think that is driven by the consumerism that is a part of, that is our culture. That is our culture.
How about, yeah?
My thing is, the woman who got the smaller car was extremely happy, and then all of a sudden when she saw across the street they had a bigger car, she wasn't, and I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't you still be happy with the car you have?
Yeah.
I mean, that makes no sense.
Yeah, I would have been real happy with a smart car. Chris?
My reaction is that it actually tells very significant truth.
Which is?
And the truth is that our desires and our appetites simply cannot be satiated by anything. And no matter what we're given, it doesn't fill the hole.
Right.
Bigger, better, faster, more.
Hold that thought, because we're going to get there. And there's this whole relationship thing. I mean, I feel so sorry for the guy. Yeah, he wraps up a perfectly fine, wonderful, sexy little smart car in a big red bow, and then she disses him. So the Buick enters her life. Yeah.
Well, I think that, piggybacking your two comments, it's not just that our desire for things can be satiated, and our stuff that we have is never big enough. I think it's also saying that the people in our lives are never really big enough either. There's always another person out there, so it's just us, right? I mean, we become as disposable as our commodities.
Yep.
And our desires are never fulfilled.
And that's the world we live in. Now, let me. For those of you who did and those of you who didn't, I'm not going to make an assumption that everybody did the advanced reading. Smith, in his book from which the reading came, says that many of us are trained to believe that the human creature is primarily a thinking creature. Remember Descartes, I think, therefore I am. This is modern and rational. We think, every one of us in the room, that if we can just make a compelling argument for change to a particular audience, everyone will be eternally grateful that we have pointed out errors in thinking and just, change without batting an eye. How many of you just love to engage in a really good, heady theological or intellectual argument? Uh-huh. And how many of you went to seminary? Yeah. And then we get let loose on the church, and we think that that's what people want. Wrong. And so we wonder why people don't get it when our very best sermon, just people say, "That was nice, Pastor." There's another way of looking at us as the human creature as believer. And that is where we think we do our work within our faith communities. And this assumes that our rational arguments are made in the context of a larger worldview. And some of those worldviews are precognitive, and they shape how we hear the rational and cognitive arguments. You might grow up, and from the earliest memory, nobody in this room, but learn somehow that people who are different are evil, or they're out to get you, or you should be suspicious of them. Some people have grown up in an ethos where they're taught that evolution is a lie, and therefore any cognitive argument made about behavior or science, even in the fields of medicine, kind of falls on deaf ears because it is inconsistent with the worldview that is brought into the room and brought to the table. I've got this is not quite so much worldview, but talk about good arguments falling on deaf ears. Years ago, I was in a church, and there was a man in the church who was really dead set on getting something in the budget that it had to do with compensation for a particular employee, and it was just not going to work. And this man was a colonel in the Air Force. He was really smart. He'd been dealing with numbers and logic all of his life, and I invited him into my office, and I laid it out. All the numbers, the calculations, this was a ironclad case for my way and not his. And he looked at me and with a perfectly straight face said, "You have made a very compelling, persuasive argument." And then went on to explain to me why his was better. So we're not always logical creatures. Another thing about belief is that in most of our faith communities, the doctrines, the dogmas were developed at a time when people were trying to find and articulate some guideposts for how to move forward on this spiritual journey. And what has happened in many places is that they have become the be-all and end-all. if you believe this, then that is all that is required of you as a member of this faith community or as a child of God, all about belief. Smith argues that the human creature is primarily a lover, a desiring creature. And if this is true, and I think it is the reason that our most persuasive arguments don't generally influence people's behavior, because we're motivated primarily by what we desire. And if you don't think that's true, how many of you who've ever been on a diet, even a cholesterol-lowering diet, and then you just couldn't resist the candy bar or the fries or whatever? Because, oh my gosh, your mind knows one thing, but there's another part of you that is motivating you. Some of the most significant decisions or actions that we engage in have little to do with being rational, like falling in love. That's just not a rational thing, is it? You don't say, oh. And then there are some smaller loves. We love pizza, and we love good weather, and there are grander loves. We love our spouse, we love our children, and then there are ultimate loves. And those are the things that really shape and mold our action, and this is where faith communities have a chance of really, if we're intentional, beginning to help people define and articulate what it is that they love. One, just to look at it a different way, there is a book that a couple of us have read. George recognizes this, right? It's Switch, How to Manage Change When Change is Hard by Chip and Dan Heath. They are both business writers, one from Stanford and one from Duke. But they talk about the human creature as having a rational mind and an emotional mind, and these are always kind of competing for control. Your rational mind says you got to wake up at 7 o'clock and the alarm clock goes off, and the emotional mind just pushes the snooze button and goes back to sleep. The rational mind wants to support local agriculture and promote a sustainable economy and lower cholesterol, and the emotional mind wants to pick up dinner at the Giant on the way home and wants to save money and just can't resist having fries with that. They say that that these two competing things are like a rider on an elephant. The rider is the rational part of us, and the elephant is the emotional part. And if you get a really good rider and clear the path, you can steer that elephant, but it's not always that easy. Okay, so we've already talked about the fact that we have some influence here. And our ultimate loves have a lot to do with what we consider to be the good life. So part of that is what fills us up, as Chris mentioned before. There is this hunger that we have inside us. There is a hole that needs to be filled. Sometimes it seems insatiable. And one of the reasons is that we have all sorts of things pitched to us that promise to fill us up. Love, food. This is my nod to Super Bowl coming up. Just wanted to make sure everybody caught that. That's relevant. The fancy car, the iPad, there are just all sorts of things that we are told are our deepest longings and desires. And if we can just have this, all will be well. I know that's true if I can get an iPad. Now, our biblical texts have a different view of what we hunger for. You're familiar with Psalm 63. O God, you're my God, I seek you, my soul thirsts for you, my flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water. So I've looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory. Because your steadfast love is better than life, my lips will praise you. My soul is satisfied as with a rich feast, and my mouth praises you with joyful lips. That's what our sacred text, how our sacred text defines that hunger that drives us. And sometimes we catch a fleeting glimpse of it. We get to that point where we do feel like we are filled with God, and lo and behold, it's enough. And everything else kind of pales in comparison. But we don't do a very good job in our faith communities of helping people understand and connect with that deepest longing. The good life is defined for us in many ways thanks to Madison Avenue. We all want to look like the couple in the upper right, stylish, trim, fit, gorgeous. Well, we all do, but this is an unusual group. There's the Food Mall, there's Louis Vuitton. I mean, there are just all sorts of ways that all around us we have messages about what the good life is. Here's the good life according to Isaiah 65. God is about to create new heavens and new earth. The former things shall not be remembered. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in this land, or the cry of distress. People shall build houses and inhabit them, not build them for other people. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be, and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain, or bear children for calamity. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox. They shall not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, says the Lord. It's a really, really compelling vision of the good life. But it's not the vision that we are pitched by Madison Avenue. It should be the vision that we are being pitched by every candidate running for political office, but it's not. My husband thinks that part of his role in my life is to be my reality check. So when I go off on flights of ideological fancy, I can talk about English right there. And talk about, this is the way the world should be. And he's quick to say, we've always had war, we've always had poverty and all of that, and that's true. And the answer should be because our faith communities have not buried deeply within our souls that this is the vision of the good life. One more thing to think about. we live in a culture of rampant individualism. And many people approach life in a faith community from that perspective. As, God is the source of my strength and my healing, my transformation and renewal, and that is true, obviously. We all sense that brokenness in us. But it is a little bit narcissistic. And I'm going to have Anne stand up now, because there's one of the hymns that's become almost iconic in our greater culture, really taps into that individualism. We're going to do Amazing Grace. So we're singing this because music touches us at a place that is deeper than just words. That's why we use music within our faith community and our liturgies. And so we could say the words, but that's not nearly as good as hearing them sung. So let us hear this one.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home.
Lord.
See, that was just so much better than just reading the words, wasn't it? Yeah. And it touched you. It touches every one of us. And we hear that hymn sung culturally, not just in our faith communities. So you need to pay attention to where it touches you and what it brings forth from you. And that is, we don't want to discount that dimension of our relationship with God. But if that's all we do and talk about in our faith communities and our liturgies, we're forgetting that other part about loving neighbor and who is neighbor and what the larger vision is and the larger community that needs to be brought in and brought together. Michael Sandel, some of you may be familiar with his work, is a political philosopher at Harvard, and he has coined the phrase, the skyboxification of America. And what he says is that even as recently as the mid-20th century, which many of us in this room can remember, there was a commonly held understanding of community and of the common good, and there were places where we could interact with each other. Whether we were blue-collar workers or an executive in a company. And one of those places, for instance, was the baseball field. You know, we would come together as communities and we would watch the game and we would cheer our team on, and we'd all eat the same greasy hot dogs and, you know, the same kind of cold, soggy popcorn, and we were all in it together. Well, what's happened even with sports? You get enough money and you buy a skybox and you eat different food and you have a different kind of experience, and we're losing that sense of the common good. And if we don't get that sense back on some deep, heartfelt, emotional level, it will be almost impossible to argue cogently for the behavioral changes that we need to make in order to have a future on this planet. You will notice in this election cycle there is a whole lot of talk about, I'm not talking about class warfare, he's talking about class warfare, I'm not talking about, you know, everybody's talking about that, and what that conversation is doing is making it impossible to have any sort of a meaningful political discourse about the very real divisions that exist in our community. And that's sad, because at the heart of who we are as a people of God is this Isaiah's vision of a common good. So our work in worship and liturgy, and frankly every other place we can do it, is to get beyond these exquisite rational arguments that we all have about what we need to do, and start figuring out how to touch people at the heart level with an understanding of the common good and an understanding of the vision of Isaiah, that vision that's at the heart of our sacred text. And we're not very good at it. Madison Avenue is really good at touching the heart. And before we get to our table discussions, you're going to see a 2-minute clip that, how many of you are Mad Men fans? Yes. This is at the end of season 1. Don Draper is the best creative genius at Sterling Cooper Advertising. They have been approached by Kodak to help Kodak market this fabulous new technological thing for showing your slides. No longer do you have to just, hold it up or stick one slide in at a time. There's this circle thing that sits down and holds about 50 or 60 slides. And the Kodak executives, and all of the ad pictures are based on real life stuff, want to pitch the marketing in terms of the technology and how smart this is and how easy it is. And they think it should be called the wheel. That's catchy, right? Don Draper is going to pitch it on a different level. Did I? Hold on.
Betty told me that in Greek, nostalgia literally means pain. It's a twinge in your heart, a lot more powerful than memory alone. This device isn't a spaceship. It's a time machine. Backwards, forwards. It takes us to a place where we ache to go again. It's not called the wheel. It's called the carousel. Travel the way a child travels. Round and around, back home again. The place we know and love.
Those are the Kodak execs.
Good luck.
That's why they win the Emmy.
We should be working hard in our faith communities to have people leaving with that much passion about the vision that we have to offer. So, around your tables are some packets. There are three things that you are invited to talk about, and then there's the optional number 4 if you look at it. First, take a look at the two texts that one from Exodus and one from 1 Corinthians that are associated with table liturgies in our faith communities, and look at what the larger context of these are, and how they might relate to the ideas of enoughness. And then take a look at the liturgies. One, a prayer that might be used in a Jewish Seder, another a prayer that part of a prayer from the Episcopal Book of Common Prayer, and just dissect them for a while. You don't necessarily have to go home and change every word of your liturgies, but maybe you're going to do that. I don't know. Just look at them in terms of those texts and the larger context and the larger vision, and play. Just play with them and see what might be done or suggested that could they be added to? Could they be done in different settings to help that vision that we have of the common good take root deep within us? And then we'll come back and talk about that. So we'll give you about a half an hour to play. And like I said, if you have time, take a look at that wine and that matzah and just begin to list all of the people and all of the places that came together to create what is on the table in front of you, and then nibble it and sip it if you want to.